Welcome everyone to another edition of Drunk Agile. Joining me from heaven is Prateek Singh. Prateek, say hi to everybody.
Hi, folks.
Um, Good news. You have some good news on the
Yeah,
contract
yeah, yeah. We
negotiation
do. I mean,
front.
the reason you see me in this location is because this is part of a contract negotiation, and it included things like treats and walks and all that. But we've gone through all the contract negotiations, and now,
Yeah, drum roll, please.
no, no,
There's Nisha. Oh,
and yeah, sorry,
uh,
that was part of the contract.
I was going to say we kind of told him he could be here, so
Yeah,
he heard the word treats, right?
yeah, yeah. He heard that. So.
Prateek, what are you drinking?
I've got the Glendronach that you had kindly handed over to me. It's almost there, so if this is the two episode night, this will probably be dead.
Yeah,
Yeah, about 60%. Yeah.
and we'll give it a good send off. So I am trying my wife actually just got me a Blanton's cask strength. This is 66%. Um,
It's gonna
and
be a good night.
let me tell you, it tastes every bit of that 66%, but it's actually quite good. Never had the cask strength Blanton's before, so really glad to try that. So cheers, everyone. Oops, as I drop my coaster.
It's working already.
It is. Um, I didn't drink. So we're going to talk about something tonight that we've kind of touched on it in several other videos, but I think we'll hit it a little bit more head on now. So I'll introduce it, and I'm going to hand it over to Prateek to do his full rant because he's much better at that stuff than I am. But it's this idea of, especially in technology and especially the software side of technology, um, that practices, engineering practices, whatever practices you want to call them, have been moving more and more to this idea of continuous. We have things like continuous integration, we have things like continuous employment, we have things like continuous whatever you want to say. Yet for whatever reason, our agile processes seem to be stuck in this big batch mode thinking. So Prateek, kick us off and tell us, hey, what's this about? What are we talking about tonight, and why is it a bad thing?
Yeah, and I mean, I love the way you summarize that. Everything as the arrow of time moves forward converges towards the continuous way of thinking. Meanwhile, we've had we've had Scrum as the leading agile process in the industry, which has had this flavor of 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, whatever sprint, where it's time boxed and certain things have to happen when that time box expires. Uh, it's very similar to when we used to do big bang releases, and they were time boxed to 6 months, a year, whatever that was. And the week before the release was going to go out, all us developers will go in and try to merge everything together, and because something special was supposed to happen on that time box. Instead, as you were saying, of the practices that we've adopted, which is continuously integrate, continuously deploy, continuously getting feedback, all that stuff has become continuous. But for some reason, the leading processes in the industry are still time boxed and cadence based.
Yeah, you touched on something. We use this example in a training that we did this week, and it's like, if you could teleport somebody back, and maybe a lot of you out there don't remember software development in the 90s or software development in the 80s or software development before then. But if you were to transport yourself back and to mid late 90s, even I would say potentially even early 2000s,
Those, yep.
you think about the way the software development was done back then. Most people did development on their local machine. They just had a copy of code on their local machine, and then at some point when you wanted to do a release, you got everybody together and tried to, as you were just saying, try to consolidate that code and turn it into something that was shippable. And if you ever lived through that, you know what a nightmare that was. I mean, the company that we just worked with went through exactly that essentially, even though they technically had continuous integration.
Yeah.
But they went through exactly that, what, every 6 months or so, and you don't have to do that too often to figure out, a big batch approach to solving that problem actually makes things worse.
And I mean, this is actually, I don't think we have said it on the podcast before. Um, as a response to that big batch waterfall approach, Scrum makes sense. I'm stealing these words from you, Dan. Scrum makes sense as a response to waterfall, because now instead of having this huge batch, you have these smaller batches where we're doing this every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, whatever that is. Um, and that is a great shift to have happened 20 years ago. 20 more years have gone by. It's, it's high time we make the next shift where we make those batches even smaller. Instead of waiting for this time box to expire, can we do all this stuff as soon as we're done with something? Can we do this, as we were saying earlier, more continuously?
Now I can hear all the Scrum dementalists and all the Scrum zealots out there listening to this, freaking out, jumping up and down right now, saying, "Hey, but there's nothing in Scrum that prevents you from, deploying and delivering multiple times per sprint." And you know what? I absolutely agree with you. There is nothing in Scrum that prevents that. But if you are doing that, if you are releasing, if you're deploying multiple times a sprint, Prateek, what's the next question that you should be asking? What's the very next question you should be asking?
Yeah, if you are deploying multiple times sprint, what that probably means is someone can actually touch and play with this thing, which probably means you can get feedback as soon as this thing is deployed. So the next question should be, why am I not getting feedback? Why am I not changing direction based on that feedback every time I can, as early as I can? In fact, the other form of that question is, why do I have to wait till a sprint review? Or why do I have to wait till the end of the sprint to act on that feedback? Why do I have to wait till a retrospective to figure out, to a sprint retrospective, to figure out how I need to change my process? If I'm running a continuous process where I can deliver multiple times a sprint, every same time anything is done, why not do everything else continuously as well?
Yeah. And then the next follow-on question to that, I was kind of going to take, I thought you were going to take it to its logical conclusion. If you agree with everything that Prateek just said, and really, honestly, if you're listening to this, you should be agreeing with everything that he just said. But if you agree with everything he just says, then the very next statement out of your mouth should be, why do we even have sprints? Why do we have, and once you start questioning sprints, there are a bunch of other stuff that you should start questioning about, and we're picking on Scrum. We might get to SAFe here in just a second.
We
There's a bunch
will.
of other stuff, in Scrum that just really kind of falls apart. And it's like, is this framework really buying us what we thought it did? Yes, maybe it did its job to get us off of waterfall 20-25 years ago. But I mean, the industry has just changed so much. Think about what has happened in the past 25 years, things you can do now that you couldn't even dream of back in the dot-com bubble era, and it's just incredible. So we've been picking on sprints. I think everything we said about sprints, I think is still applicable to PIs, and it's probably even more so, right? I mean, probably
Yeah, yeah.
it's
It's
amplified.
it's funny. It's funny what has happened in the agile industry in software development. Everything else, every technical practice, everything else has moved in the continuous direction. Meanwhile, the process stuff has moved in the opposite direction. We've gone from 2 weeks to wait for feedback to 3 months to wait for feedback because we have a PI. Now again, same things apply. I'm sure there are safe folks who'll say you can deploy multiple times the PI, you can do all that. But if you can, and if you're getting feedback and you can potentially change direction based on that feedback, why even worry about a PI? Why not just do that continuously?
Why tie your planning activities to I'm going to say the word, Prateek is man when I say the word, but I'm going to say the word. Why tie your planning activities to a arbitrary time box? Why tie your whatever activities to an arbitrary time box? Why do that? So for me, the moral of the story is, anytime you hear about batches, and I think this is the problem, I mean, um, Scrum and SAFe specifically have done a great job of hiding the batchiness of their process, and camouflaging it in this word agile. When if you take a cold hard look at the recommendations of what the sprint framework is, what the SAFe framework is, they are anything but agile. I don't know. That's all I had to say. I don't know if you have anything else to say, or should I just give you the last word? We get out of here.
Yeah, it's. I mean, to me, I was going to go further into arbitrary, but I'm not. We've spent enough time on arbitrary. But that is the key word there. The reason you picked a 2 week sprint is because you thought that's a good enough time we can spend to get some feedback, work on something to get some feedback. But if that thing is done in 10 days, why would you wait till the end of the sprint? Why won't you just get feedback on it? In fact, my guess is if you're doing something like Scrum, if you are trying to be agile, you're probably getting something done every day. Why wait till 2 weeks, till 2 weeks are up, or 3 weeks are up, or 4 weeks are up? Or in the case of SAFe, why wait till the 3 months are up to get that feedback, to pivot, to be agile? Um, I guess for me, the last thing I will say is where we have in the past year or so had the whole AI revolution unfolding in front of our eyes. Those machines are not saying, "Oh, I'm going to collect data for 2 weeks and then I'm going to react to it and change." They are those machines are evolving every second. They're evolving their models every second as soon as they get feedback.
Yeah, thank you for your prompt. I put that on the backlog. I'm going to get my product owner to order this thing for me, right? I'll get back to you
Yeah,
once my developers decide that it fits within the goal that I've chosen for this. Yeah.
onto that. Yeah, yeah.
So that's a great analogy. Um, well, so since you brought it up, we're gonna have some bonus drunk agile material here, because we were gonna wrap it up, but since Prateek brought it up, I hate to give him credit, but he did a really good job of explaining the word arbitrary in in the class that we're doing today. Because he pulls me aside and he slaps me around. He's like, "Dan, you keep saying arbitrary. Nobody knows what you mean when you say arbitrary." And I'm like, "Okay, fair enough, Prateek. How would you explain arbitrary?" So Prateek, for the people who've stuck with us so far in this video,
I know.
here it
I
is,
know.
in real time, bonus, drunk, agile material. Prateek, how would you explain arbitrary?
For the people who haven't thrown their screens away. Um, yeah. So the example that Dan was talking about, that we've talked about, is Scrum. If you're doing Scrum, it's very likely that you're doing a 2 week sprint. That 2 week length, or 3 week sprint, whatever your sprint length is arbitrary. As Dan says, it's arbitrary. Now, when you think about that word arbitrary, the way I would like you to think about it is, say, why not 13 days? Why is this 14 days? Why not 12 days? Why not 11 days? Why not 15 days? Why not 16 days? The fact that it's 14 days is arbitrary. Someone picked that for you, or you picked that for yourself without any grounding in any data, in any observation. If you had been watching how long it's taking you to produce value, and you had used that, the voice of your process, to come up with that time box, then it would not have been arbitrary. The fact that you picked 14 when you could have picked 13 or 12 or 11 or 10, that is absolutely arbitrary.
Or 16.8 is like what I said, or
16.8. Yeah.
16. Why not 16.81? Why not pi number of days?
Ooh.
Three times pi number of days. Why not that? you know so I'll get off my arbitrary time box. Well, if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about arbitrary as it applies to voice of the customer versus voice of the process, we do have some videos on that, so please go check those out. I'm assuming you've said the last word, so we can probably just wrap it up here. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's it. Continuous. Let us know your thoughts. I mean, do you agree with us? Has the industry been evolving more, toward continuous? And is it not high time that our quote unquote agile processes kind of get with the times and reflect that more continuous approach that, technology is not only demanding, but is like, I mean, it's here. It's like it's what it is, right? For Prateek Singh, I just want to say on behalf of a grateful audience, we're so happy that Nisha made it back. She finally.
She's looking here. She's looking here.
Hey, Nisha. She was, by the way, she was her own agent. She represented herself here, just in case anybody's thinking about, wanting to reach out to her for representation. She did a great job all on her own. So thank you, Nisha, for
All her negotiations were continuous.
yeah for shutting down the strike and joining us here. And of course, thank you, Spartacus, too. That's it for us. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Good night, everyone.